Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex, arrived at episode 580, and poor old Norm didn't know where to look. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
Pretty good.
We are going to drum up some energy because we're all tired.
Yeah. Well, I just got done doing a
Having
workout.
a headache all day, so.
I just got done doing a workout, and then so I thought, okay, I'll have all this, a lot of times when I'm done, I'm still, up. No, not this time. I'm tired.
What is this workout you speak of?
We've been trying to do one every night.
What kind of workout do you do?
Trying. We're doing the Apple Fitness workouts. So right now we're kind of taking it slow, but we're doing dance and mindful cool downs. So
Nice.
yeah. What about you guys? That's about all I did. I didn't get any movies watched this week. I've been watching Hermitcraft season 10 came back, so I've been watching a lot of that, catching up on everybody's videos.
What's Hermitcraft?
That's that Minecraft server that I watch on YouTube. All those different YouTubers that are on that one server, and then they collab and build things together. And
Gotcha.
each have episodes. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Should have known from the title.
Yeah.
I've not done much either, other than I'm still playing Spider-Man. I think I'm near the halfway mark, and I'm at like 17 hours.
I trouble myself because I used to be able to multitask with book reading, and I was such a vicarious reader that, I'd have a book in the bathroom and a book in the car just in case we stopped somewhere and I could knock out a chapter or a book over here instead of carrying the same book with me. I had books stashed everywhere so that I could pick them up and read. And then in high school, it got to the point where I think we were reading the Tale of Two Cities, and I started dreaming that damn book at night, and I started transposing plots from one book to another book. So I'm dreaming that there's this chase sequence and things are happening, and then all of a sudden we're on the guillotine stand, and it's like, okay, I'm done with this. I can't keep this straight anymore. And so I backed off to just one book at a time. Well, I went to the Friends of the Library book sale accidentally. True story. It can happen this way. Shy and I went to the library. I've shown up
and it's been going on. I know how.
There you go. Okay, so we showed up and I was like, "Oh damn!
Why are they so busy today? What's going on?"
Walked in, kind of browsed around for a little bit, and found on the audiobook table Ernest Cline's Armada for $1.
Okay. Nice.
And I'm like, on CD? Yeah, boy. And I was between books. So I bought it and I put it in the car and I started listening to it. And I got through the first CD, and then my online blah, blah, blah notification chimed and said, hey, the next Dresden book is available and you can rent it for your... and I'm like, aw. And of course, they sent me the very nice, well, you don't have to do it now if you don't want to. We'll hold it. You'll hold your place in line. And I'm like, no, I don't want to wait. So I own Ernest Cline. I put him on hold and jumped over to Dresden. And then I had to put Dresden on hold so I could listen to Thomas Brewster. All of a sudden, and still sitting over on my nightstand, is the hard copy of Stephen King's Fairy Tale, which I've been working on for about 3 years and just haven't got back to because, I don't know, somewhere online it became a vacation book and I can only read it on vacation. It's not that it's not good. It's very, very good. But for whatever reason, I can't physically sit down and read anymore. So all of a sudden I have all these different books going at the same time. And I'm like, no.
Well, at least you finished one of them.
Yeah.
Is it seeping into your dreams now and cross-plotting?
Not yet, fortunately. No, right now my dreams have all been anxiety-fueled nightmares about you're not ready to role play. You're not ready to role play. But I'm gonna push through. I gotta get it done.
You'll do fine.
You can do it.
What else is going on?
Well, let's talk a little bit about some news, because there was some sad news that came out this morning.
Do we have to
Yeah,
talk about it? It's sad.
Well, we don't have to
really
talk
don't.
about it, but
I'd rather just ignore it and pretend it didn't happen.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, Michael Jaston has passed away at the age of 88
my bathroom buddy.
after a short illness.
My bathroom buddy.
Yeah.
You know what's weird is I went through all of my galley photos because I couldn't remember specifically what year he was there, and then I, of course, narrowed it down because I was like, well, duh. It was the year Glenn
I
went.
was there.
The 1 year.
Wait. Look, before new listeners are wondering what the heck I'm talking about, bathroom buddy, when I went to Gallifrey 1, oh, God, what has it been, like 15 years ago now? 10 years ago?
I think it was 2012 or 13,
Yeah.
I think was when I figured out you were there.
It must be 2013, because I think we went to Disney in 2012, and I went to Gallifrey the following year. So anyway, 2013. And Michael Jason was there that year. And at no fewer than 3 times, I would be in the bathroom, and he would be in the bathroom. Either I'd go in there and he was already in there, or I'd be in there and he'd come in. But it was like we had the same bathroom schedule. And so it was just this weird coincidence. So suddenly I just started calling him my bathroom buddy. And that last time we saw each other, we kind of acknowledged the fact that we kept meeting there. So,
because that's not weird or anything.
No. Well, it would have been strange. It would have been strange if each time one or the other of us went in first and the other went in second. But luckily there was those off chances where one of us was in there when the other came in and vice versa. So it didn't make it so weird.
Made it not seem like you were a stalker.
Right. Or he was stalking me.
See? Could go either way, maybe. I doubt it.
So
I'm
anyway.
sitting on my hands. I'm not going
So anyway.
I'm not going to jump on that.
You can finish your, you were looking through your Gallifrey pictures.
Oh, yeah. Well, I realized I apparently didn't get a single photo of Michael Jason from that year in the bathroom or otherwise. So it was a little...
But isn't there a picture of you two interviewing him?
No,
that's Stephen Thorne.
Was that Stephen Thorne?
We had talked about interviewing Michael Jason, but we never could make it work.
Oh.
And I rode up and down in the elevator with him several times. Mm-hmm. And I was shocked that it was like we have these seemingly intimate moments with the man and no photographic evidence.
No photographic evidence.
No proof.
Just a little odd, but so yeah, very, very bittersweet memories this morning because he was truly a joy to talk to. But yeah.
And a terrific actor. I mean, his performance as the Valeyard, and we got to hear him revisit the Valeyard again when we were listening to the Big Finish War Doctor stories, and so.
And I kind of still held out hope that he was going to reappear at some point in the modern series. Yeah. I don't know why I held out hope for that, but I just kind of thought, it'll happen. Mm-hmm. So he will be missed.
He will be missed.
He will be.
Well, that's all the news we've got. We do have some upcoming conventions to remind you about. London Anime and Gaming Con in Novotel London West in London, February 16th and 19th. Gareth David Lloyd will be there. He played Ianto in Torchwood. He's the only Doctor Who related guest there because he actually is a voice actor as well. I didn't realize this until I started looking into London Anime and Gaming Con, and he's done a lot of voice acting. So he's there in that capacity, but if you know him from Torchwood and you'll get something signed from Torchwood, there you go. Capital Sci-Fi Con, also in the UK. This is at the O2 Academy in Edinburgh. That's February 17th and 18th. Paul McGann will be on hand there. And then, of course, the big one, as we were just talking about, Gallifrey 1 2024, Los Angeles, California, February 16th through the 18th. And among the many, many, many guests, and I won't list them off, but among them are Alex Kingston, Lala Ward, Matthew Waterhouse, Fraser Hines, Jacqueline King, Nabil Shaban, Jonathan Carley, and many, many, many more. And that's your upcoming conventions.
You are invited on an adventure across all of time and space, in a completely random order. It's the Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. Jump in the TARDIS with your hosts,
Eric Gulbranson,
Asad Kheshki,
and
Matthew Kressel.
Explore Doctor Who TV stories, audio adventures, and books, both novels and non-fiction. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. It's the entire Whoniverse on shuffle. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast is a member of the Direction Point Network and is available about once a month wherever you find your podcasts. You are listening to Traveling the Vortex.
Hello, fellow time travelers, and welcome to the Doctor Who Target Book Club podcast, the only podcast to discuss, in story order, all the Doctor Who novelizations. My name is Tony Witt, and every 2 weeks or so, I'm joined by a 2 to 3 person discussion panel, including our so-called expert who's been a Who fan since 1979. That would be me. We also get the views of intermediate, casual, and novice fans who either have never seen the show or who have never read these books until these podcasts, including
Dalton Hughes
and
Alison Fitz-Seyfried.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you find good podcasts, or even ones like ours. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
I believe the next thing to do then is to review. And of course, we're going to do these in Doctor order. So we recently, in the US anyway, they've had this in the UK for a while, but we recently got the DVD and Blu-ray issues of Doctor Who, The Underwater Menace. And this is the colorized version, which is...
Well, it has black and white too.
It does have black and white. Animated, I should say, is what I meant. And
Yes.
so we've obviously reviewed the story back some time ago when they did the initial DVD release, I believe it was, with the reconstructions. And so we're just going to talk a little bit about the animation this time. Keith, I'll let you go first.
I thought the animation was fantastic. There's only one complaint I have with the animation, and I'll get to that later. But I thought the faces of the characters were really well done and very expressive, but still within that style that they've kind of established for the second Doctor. I think the color choices they chose for the colorized version were really good, and I think fits really well with the story that is being told. I thought the movements were a lot smoother than they've kind of been in the past. Some of them almost, the way, it wasn't quite as jerky and as, figures on popsicle sticks as it has been. It's been a lot, It's a lot smoother and a lot more almost three-dimensional turning and things like that, where we haven't got quite as much in the past. I think my only complaint with it was the way they redesigned the fish people. I kind of miss the kitschy 60s version of the fish people with the sequins. They made them look a lot more like...
a lot more fish-like.
More fish-like and more like a Shape of Water or Abe Sapien.
Yeah,
almost more amphibian fish person.
Yeah.
Fish person, less scaly. And maybe because I think that really that's what the sequins were trying to emulate on the costumes were the scales. So I wish if they could have included some hints or details of scales on the animation, I think it would have worked a little better for me. I enjoyed the fish people have never been a problem for me. I think they were very ambitious for the 60s when they did it, and I thought they did a fairly decent job. So that's the only thing. I kind of missed the old costumes.
You know what they reminded me of was Wakanda Forever. The
the Atlanteans in that, or not?
They were Atlanteans. Yeah.
Well, they weren't Atlanteans in that. They were. Oh no, they chose
I've
not
only
to
seen
be
it once, so I
but-
can't remember. Yeah, you're right.
Mesoamerican something. I don't remember what they called them, but
Mariners people.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I personally preferred the change. I'm one of the people that has always been bothered by and it's Doctor Who, so you give it a pass or you accept that that's what they had at best at the time. But I've never liked the look of the fish people in the series. So this one I thought was more of a subtler design, and I think it helped not make me giggle every time they were on screen. But I think what I liked also about it is the fact that the Atlanteans are all sort of, they have a kind of a greenish hue, and they have the striking features that they didn't necessarily have in the actual episode itself. So I think it melds the two, sort of bridges that, difference between the fish people, the ones that have become the fish people, and the ones that are still the Atlanteans. So,
one of the great things of what they did do also was they made it clearer what they were doing when they were doing the swimming around bit. In the TV show, it's almost like they were just trying to show off, trying to do the swimming effects, and it wasn't as clear that the one is trying to communicate with the other one.
Well, that's just it. It looked like acrobats in a circus.
Right. And in the animation, even though there wasn't as much variance in what they did, it looked more like he was trying to communicate with the other fish people. So I thought that was a good change as well.
I concur with really everything. I was kind of surprised, honestly. Just from the standpoint that the internet scuttlebutt has been, oh, this is terrible. The animation is horrible. Why are we continuing to, get these? If they're not going to do it, don't bother doing it. If you can't do it right. It seemed like I'd read a lot of down kind of reviews on it. And the cover admittedly does not inspire a lot of confidence when you look at the shot that's, it's kind of a plain Jane blah.
That's just been the covers for all the animated ones.
Well, that's true too.
So disappointed with that. I wonder why these aren't selling. Well, they're not selling because you're not attracting anybody to them.
Yeah, the marketing is definitely subpar. But the animation itself, I agree. I thought it was fluid. I kind of kept looking at it going, well, this doesn't look like what everybody was complaining about. I mean, it's still not my favorite, but it's much closer in line with that, and it's a little more smooth on the movements and such. As Keith said, the facial, I recognized everybody. I didn't have any questions about who somebody was. The color palette was really kind of astonishing. It had a great sense of color to it. And I was only going to pop it in just long enough to kind of get a feel for it, and wound up watching 2 full episodes and partway through the third one because I got sucked back in, even though, and I'm pretty sure we commented at the time that we reviewed this is not exactly the strongest story, but it's goofy enough because of the insane scientist elements that being animated, it really kind of this story lends itself to this particular type of storytelling. And I was quite pleased with it.
I sort of agree with you there. When I first started watching it, I felt like the colors were a little too much. I thought they were a little oversaturated, especially for being a story that's supposedly set underwater or underwater. But the more I watched it, the more I realized it's such a fantastical story that the bright colors almost lend to the story better because of that. And so once I got past that, got into it, then it wasn't so much bothering me. I think the one thing that did bother me, and now I for the life of me cannot remember which one. Now this was BBC Studios that did this one. And I still think one of the best ones they've done is Evil of the Daleks. I think Evil of the Daleks was done so well. And I think this is in line with, as you talked about, Keith, the facial expression was really good. The movements were really clean. I think one thing that bothered me about this, and I don't think it was another BBC Studios one, but I could be wrong. And this is going to be funny coming off of Wild Beyond Yonder, but their arms are too long. And that kept bugging me and I don't know if it has to do with because they do still do some of that limited movement because they're you can animate it faster if you don't have the complete articulation of joint and things like that, or you have kind of that, able to move it in certain ways. And so it must have something to do with that. But there was another story that I complained the same thing. I believe that I just felt like the arms were out of proportion, and that bugged me on this one too. But I don't remember that being any of the other BBC Studios one. The Power of the Daleks one, maybe it was that one. Maybe I'm just misremembering. It definitely wasn't Evil of the Daleks, because that did not stand out, and I don't think the Faceless ones was that way, but maybe.
Was it any one character in particular?
It's most noticeable.
People?
It's most noticeable on Jamie and the Doctor.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and here's another thing. When you watch these animations and you see the Doctor, it looks like the Doctor. And when you see these animations and you look at Jamie, it looks like Jamie. And when you watch these animations and you see Polly, it looks like Polly. But every dang one of these, Ben looks like some generic Ken doll. And he doesn't look the same in any of them. And so nobody, for some reason, can get Ben right. I don't know what that is, but...
Nobody remembers what Ben looks like. So many of his episodes were white.
Get a picture.
Like, there was a guy named Ben. I remember that.
Take a picture. That bothers me, because none of the Bens have looked like Ben.
Well, you say that, but I watched the black and white first, and just so I could have a comparison, jump back to the live action for episode 3. And at the start of episode 4, I didn't recognize Polly at all in the animation in black and white. Had it been in color, where it was her normal flesh color and her hair color, I would have been like, oh, okay, that's who it is. But I was like, wait, is that the one chick that was helping them? Or was it?
You know what her hair color is.
I met her. I
Oh,
know.
well, she doesn't have blonde hair anymore.
But the fringe was blonde.
I suppose that's true. Yeah.
I should have realized that the fringe was visible, whereas the other girl, it wasn't. So, I mean...
Yeah.
And you know what? The animation, or the colorization, the colored part, it gave such a C-Lab 2020 vibe.
Oh, didn't it, though?
That it that's part of why it works as well. It gives it that Hanna-Barbera almost over the... Not necessarily over the top, but almost there, vibe to it that totally fits in with the 60s stuff. Especially the guys in the Zaroff's guys in their suit, in their, like, I don't know if they were supposed to be wetsuits or what, but those guys specifically, I was like, oh, that's C-Lab 2020 right there.
I really enjoyed that element of it. It was kind of harkening back to like, oh yeah.
Yep.
And I watched through the whole thing twice, and I think I enjoy the story even more now than our initial watch through the first time.
Well, what helps tremendously is this whole story's moving this time. We're not having they animated, I think, the first episode not animated. They reconstructed the first episode and I think the fourth episode with the telesnaps. And they, for some reason,
they tried to be strict with
and it was just so stoic and it was hard to watch. And then by the time you get to the live action stuff, the stuff that's actually moving, I think you're so exhausted from watching that first story that, you just as you finally get back into it because you've got 2 surviving stories, then suddenly you're thrown back in that fourth episode into those stills again. And I think that taints it a little bit.
There's so much action and not a lot of exposition in the fourth episode that
that's certainly
you lose
true.
a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I enjoyed this so much more also, is because it was clearer what was going on. Even though we read the novelization when we watched the reconstruction, I understood a lot more of the story and what was happening this time than I have in the past. Yeah.
I got that impression as well.
It's not the highest end of Troughton's stories, but it's definitely not the worst, in my opinion.
I think it's funny that we've come so far along now, though, that I think maybe Evil was in the latest stretch, I guess Macroterror as well, in the latest stretch of ones that we had already done, the reconstruction of before We got to the animation, and this is another one in that line of we're having to revisit it now that the animation's out. But that's quite all right, because I think, like you said, there's a lot of improvement to the story just because of the visualizations.
And as much as I enjoyed doing the reconstructions and the novels together, I'd much rather have the animations.
Yeah, same. Dear BBC, I'm going to need you guys to call up an animation house and do a full animation reconstruction of the Talons of Wen Chiang, because I feel like that story would get a lot better in animation.
Let's not bother them with things that exist, and let's let them stay focused on the things that don't, because we're not going to get the Crusade, because they've already given in and put that on the DVD as a recon. And I bet they'll do the same thing with the Highlanders. So let's at least get another one or two of them out of there that they'll do. So,
and I'd much rather them be in this style than the style they did for the Web of Fear.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we think of the Celestial Toymaker. I think that is going to lend better to that type of story, but it is the same animation company, so we'll have to see if we can put up with the.
They've come leaps and bounds just from the trailer from Web of Fear to Celestial Toymaker.
How many times have you watched the trailer?
Several.
Okay, because every time I watch it, I think I'm not sure. I think I was kind of excited that this was coming out over the fact that the animation looks good. So, we'll see.
And I was the reverse. I was very disappointed by the animation, and the more I watched it, the more I thought it was better and looks good. It's been a while since I've watched it, but that's what I remember.
I was initially disappointed with the animation style for Toymaker, but knowing that it's the same animation house that did this one.
It's not this one. It's
which one is it?
I
thought that's what you'd said.
No, Web of Fear, the one that.
It's
Web of Fear, the one that we didn't care that much for because they animated that one episode. Yeah, no, this is shape. That'll be Shapeshifter Studios. So, which is funny because
I'll just go back to reserving my judgment until it comes out, because that, as you said, that story does lend itself to this particular format. But
yeah.
I guess we'll find out.
This is Tim Trelaw.
This is David J. Howe.
I'm Peter Purvis.
I am Sadie Miller.
This is Lauren Cornelius.
Larry, it's Fraser.
For all things in the Doctor Who collecting world and beyond, the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. I'm Larry Van Mersbergen, your host, and I've been collecting for 42 years. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex on the Direction Point Podcast Network.
Hi, I'm Rupert Booth.
I am known as Paul Ferry.
And my name is Barry Williams.
Together, we host Time Ram.
Time Ram's a cruel mistress.
It's a random number generator.
That also.
We roll a number from 1 to 13, and that's our Doctor. Then 1 to 300 for the story, and then we ram them together.
Even if it doesn't make sense.
Cruel, I tell you.
Time Ram, putting the wrong Doctors in the wrong stories, so you don't have to.
You're listening to Traveling the Vortex.
We are going on a journey, a very long journey, through the world of the Target novelizations in publication order. Every week we are looking at a new book, talking about Terrence Dicks, Malcolm Hulke, and all our Doctor Who novelization friends. Whatever you do, keep turning the pages. This is Jason Miller of the Doctor Who Literature Podcast, a member of the Direction Point Podcast Network, and you are listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
Well, let's move on to our review of The Crimes of Thomas Brewster, which is an eighth Doctor. No, it's not. It's a sixth Doctor story, and it features, once again, one of our favorite companions, Evelyn Smythe.
Yay!
Sent down south to assist the Metropolitan Police in their efforts to investigate the gangland kingpin known only as the Doctor. Detective Inspector Patricia Menzies finds herself up to her neck in laser-armed robot mosquitoes, gun-running criminal overlords, vanishing tube trains, and not one, but two doctors. Meanwhile, the real Doctor and his academic assistant, Professor Evelyn Smythe, have become ensnared in the machinations of an old acquaintance, time-traveling Victorian gutter snipe Thomas Brewster. But what is Brewster's connection to these rapacious robot terrivores? And can anyone contain the gathering swarm?
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah,
I think this would have a bigger dump bun if we had known who Thomas Brewster was.
Well, and I thought of that when we went in when I started listening to it. I thought, oh no, I believe we have not listened to The Haunting of Thomas Brewster for sure, which is Fifth Doctor story, and I don't think we've done The Boy That Time Forgot, which I think is the first story that comes back that has Adric come back, and then we have not done Time Reef, and we have not done A Perfect World. And so those are actually 4 stories ahead of this. But as we are hopping in through the vortex, and we have done with all of the television stories, I thought this story did a really good job of catching me up on what sort of character Thomas Brewster was. And so I didn't feel like I was missing a lot of his backstory. And so the character is, I think, dynamic enough and is, I mean, he doesn't have grand motives in this one. I mean, he does, but it's not something that's like intricate or detailed. It's very much a fly by the seat of your pants, have some idea of what you're doing, but then not enough foresight to see, what could end up happening. And so I think there was just enough of that the Thomas Brewster character didn't get lost in the, well, I don't even know who this guy is kind of sense for me anyway.
And to some extent, it actually benefited the story because the mystery of who is this guy posing as the Doctor was there until they reveal that it's this guy named Thomas Brewster, which at that point it's like, okay, well, who is he? But I think had we known who Thomas Brewster was, all the way leading up to it would have been like, obviously it's him. Come on. Because we would have recognized him and his name's in the title.
Right.
It's
I think what it benefits, though, is that from a story standpoint, not necessarily from us, what it does benefit is even if you know as a listener who this is, Evelyn's the first one that goes in there and has contact with him. And so I think they did the story right so that they kept the Doctor distanced enough that he didn't figure it out until he got close enough to Thomas that he realized what was going on. And so I think that serving it from that perspective with a new Doctor, with a different Doctor and a new companion, I think it worked out really well. I thought it was the plotting of that was really well done, I felt.
Yeah, I would agree.
There is a little bit of rhyme and reason, not just that, well, we've skipped around with every other companion.
Well,
so
yeah.
we'll skip around with this one too.
I mean, we're doing Evelyn in order.
Right.
We are attempting to do Evelyn in order, and I will throw out not even a spoiler, just a mild warning that Evelyn can get a little convoluted just based on the when, where, and who Evelyn interacts with as we get close to the end of her run.
Yeah.
There's a lot of timey-wimey that's kind of happening. And so you just have to buckle down and pick one and go, this is the through line.
Right. Well, and obviously Patricia Menzies is a prime example of that, whereas the stuff with Charlie is clearly in the Doctor's future, but for her, it's a second encounter with him. So there's a lot of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff just within this specific story, which makes it interesting, especially in the beginning, as they're establishing the mystery of everything that's going on.
You got it. I was pleasantly, I don't want to say surprised, but it was a pleasant listen. That most of the story was pretty good and engaging. with interesting characters and things that kind of keep you along for the ride. If anything, I do feel like Thomas is kind of the weak link of this story. For an episode called The Crimes of Thomas Brewster, we really only dealt with one crime, and it was kind of sort of inadvertent, and he did not come across as necessarily a villain. Which, it was interesting and like, oh, okay, subverting my expectations. But consequently, while I did find myself, even though it was kind of a standard alien invasion tale, I found myself gravitating more toward those elements of the story and way less on the gangsters and Thomas interactions. Mm-hmm. The inept, was it Gallagher?
Mm-hmm. By the time he showed back up in part 4, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And his inept troop of henchmen. Do you not pay your henchmen? Do you not offer a dental plan or anything? Because nobody had any real loyalty or ability. We'll say that. So yeah, that was a thing. But
I think had they not, I think the story is mistitled, I think is the problem. It really feels like they came up with the title before they came up with the story, or they came up with the title because they wanted something that sort of tied to the haunting of Thomas Brewster. And so I think that I blame the mistitling for the disappointment that I kind of had in Brewster's character as well, but mostly because I found myself going, well, crimes plural, no. And this guy actually sort of seems like he thinks he's helping somebody, and so he's not. He may be a protagonist, but he's not, or an antagonist, but he's not necessarily the villain. And of course, the villains are all revealed later. But so I think it was more of this. The misstep was titling it what they did, not necessarily his use in the story.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one.
The other issue I had with the story, and I don't know if it's because it's been so long since we've had a main range story that's 4 parts that they're trying to stretch out, for so long, because we've been doing so much hour chunk story formats, but it felt a little overly convoluted and a little too trying to be clever in misdirection multiple times where it probably didn't need to be.
I would agree with those.
At the same time, it also felt like those sort of things were something that the Six Doctors era did as well. Like, it's got an overall plot, and I understood the plot, but some of the minutiae is kind of, this happens, and it goes over there, and kind of happens. Kind of like Attack of the Cybermen. That story is kind of so gray in my mind that as it just progresses and things happen for reasons that I don't fully wrap my brain around. And this is kind of a similar thing. It is, now we're doing that, now we're over here, and we went through this whole circumference route to get to this point where we could have just cut a straight line and got there, but we needed to fill the time.
Yeah, about the time that we got to the no, I'm the doctor, with no real...
How many people are going to claim to be the doctor in this story?
Well, and all of it wound up essentially for naught, because none of the reveals really mattered. It was just to try and throw some confusion into things, and then when it didn't really work, the doctor goes, oh, okay, I'm the doctor, and Thomas was like, well, yeah, I knew it. And then
even the same thing with the planet people.
Yeah, with the whatever they were.
Well, I would have to argue that he had to keep that facade up, because that was what tricked them when he was saying, well, I'm out. I don't need to be here. I'm gone. When he bails, that wouldn't have been something that the doctor would do, but he had to get away in order to draw the queen away from the rest of the, whatever this animal or the half droid, half sentient things were symbiotic. Yeah. He had to draw him away. So that one seemed to work, because it was initially done so that Thomas wouldn't figure out who the doctor was, but it had to be carried on so that they could have that plot element happen as well. And so I thought that worked all right.
See, I guess for me, because these people were seeking out the Doctor anyway, and they out Thomas eventually as not being the Doctor, had the true Doctor stood up and said, "It's me," he could have then just pretty much convinced them to trust him instead of doing this whole misdirect of, I'm going to betray Earth so that they can take it over, and say, just trust me, I have this plan that can work. It will stop
because even when they wholeheartedly believed that Thomas was the Doctor, they were already ready to double cross him. So there's no way that the Doctor could have said, "No, I really am the Doctor," and then you go, "Okay, well, we're not going to double cross you," because they wholeheartedly believed that Thomas was the Doctor, and they already had been prepared to double cross him to get rid of the symbiotic swarm, whatever they were. So I don't think that would have worked, and I think that's why he had to keep up the facade.
I'll allow it, but I don't know that I buy it. It just seemed like, as Keith said, padding.
Oh, I'm not denying that. I'm just saying I don't think it was. I still think that it was necessary. I don't think it needed to be as drawn out as it was. Don't get me wrong, but I think that there was still some necessity for it. I don't think they could have cut the corner on that element of it. I don't know if it's just me, but I haven't noticed since a lot of the stuff we've been listening to recently has been done during COVID, and a lot of people are working off site with some really good audio and some really good audio mixing that convinces me that everybody's in the same room, right? Until I listen to this one, and there's something about and maybe it's because there's more of an energy because they're all there together, perhaps, but it really feels a little different, and it almost feels like going back to something a little more familiar that I didn't realize I was missing from the new audios. And I'm not saying that the new audios are bad in any way. And I'm not saying that I'm not enjoying them and that they're not doing a phenomenal job, but there is something a little more crisp and clear about this one that I didn't realize until going back and listening to a pre-COVID story. Was it just me, or did anybody else notice that?
It's a completely different animal. The energy is different. Just like when we record together, I find I'm on a different wavelength than when I'm sitting in my basement in the dark recording solo.
Well, quit sitting in the dark.
Turn on a light.
We fear light.
Are you a Mogwai?
It's not after midnight. I guess I could eat a little something.
That'll make you.
No, I just you feed off the people around you, and so when you're solo and alone, even though you've got the material in front of you and you're delivering your performance, you are performing to the mic, which has got to be a different feel as an actor than performing to the mic, knowing that you can see so and so across the room, in their little booth, laughing at your performance because you're so into it. That's got to have a whole different vibe to it, I would think.
I would think so too. I didn't notice it though.
Not at all, huh?
No, not really.
I will also freely admit that I was just so ecstatic to have Evelyn back in my life that there may have been. This could have committed any number of sins, and I'd been like, don't care.
Fair enough.
Even though they hypnotize her or not hypnotize her, but
possess her
body and possess her, and we don't truly get her for half a story. She is fantastic, though.
I love the open of this when they're being chased, and I just that the excitement and the action that you can just imagine in your head as it's happening. I thought that was so much fun.
Yeah.
The absolute best bit was, "Oh, your poor coat. Oh, it's all right. I've got more at home." You do? Well, you didn't think I wore the same one, did you? I've got a half a dozen, or I've got a dozen more. One down, 12 to go.
All right.
And apparently this is the introduction of another character that will stick around or come back.
Yeah.
From what it looks like.
Who's that?
Flip.
Oh, right.
Philippa.
I forgot about that.
To the point where I kept waiting for how do they get back onto the TARDIS? What happens to the boyfriend? The boyfriend's dead meat. They're going to kill him off. I went through all of the, and it was like, no, we just did a soft launch, as it were.
And I look forward to hearing the stories where we meet Patricia Menzies the first time. I thought she was a great character. Really enjoyed her interactions with Evelyn and then her interactions with the Doctor. I thought they had a great chemistry, all of them together.
Mm-hmm.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, which is entirely possible. Have we not encountered Patricia at all yet, or
not that I remembered?
Yeah, well, she was the one that. So when Charlie
Did we?
and the Doctor are, let's see. So when Charlie and the Doctor, I don't remember the particulars of the story, but there was a guy that was dead in a room, and the door was locked from the inside, and they came across it for some reason. And they were trying to figure out what was happening, and her and her constable show up. And that's the first time that the Sixth Doctor meets her.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
I think it's even the first story with
It is.
Charlie.
It's Charlie's first story when she joins the Doctor. Yes.
Okay.
How many of the ones with Charlie and the Sixth Doctor have we done?
That's it. And maybe two.
Not the only one.
But that's the only one I could remember. Yeah.
That was so long ago that it was. I truly don't remember that story at all. I remember her. Last thing I remember from Charlie was her
the Condemned
encountering the Sixth Doctor, and then joining him in the TARDIS, but not an actual full story.
Yeah,
that's the last thing I remember. So obviously we must have done more since then.
Main Range 105, The Condemned. That's what it was. And it is right after. In fact, we listened to the story where the Eighth Doctor drops her off, or inadvertently, I guess. And then,
yes, I remember that one.
And then we listened to the one where the Eighth Doctor. Well, at the end of that one, I think the Eighth Doctor, that's why I keep getting confused. The Sixth Doctor shows up at the end of that story where he leaves her, and so
the girl that never was.
And it is, and it is the new set of her taking off with the Sixth Doctor. So yeah, The Condemned was the one I was thinking of. And it was some guy died in a building, high-rise building, behind a locked door, and they had to figure out why or how it had happened. So that's where she met the Doctor.
She was. I remember this. She was running around different apartments, and she talked to different people. It turned out the entire building had something going on with it.
105th story is the name of the. Or not is the number of the thing. I thought it was the 105th story of the building. I was like, that building wasn't that big.
No, it wasn't that tall.
No.
But Charlie was running around trying to tackle the mystery from one side by talking to people and things. And the Doctor was outside the building.
Yes.
But couldn't get in and she couldn't get out. And they were both trying to solve the mystery of what was going on before she got offed.
Right.
Okay. I just did a search on. I don't remember that at all. I just did a search on the scheduler, and that was back at 430.
Yeah,
so that wasn't that long ago.
So it's been a bit.
And D.I. Menzies was in the 50th anniversary, the 10th anniversary special that Big Finish did, where they had the several stories. She was a character in that as well. I can't for the life of me remember what that one was about.
According to this TARDIS wiki, she's only been 4 of them. 2 which with Charlie. Oh, and then the one Legacy of Time.
Yeah, Legacy of Time. That's what it was called.
That one kind of seems familiar.
Yeah, she was in that. Not very much. Of course, none of the cameos of those were in that very much either. But
that's true.
Well, I'm sure you can go back and...
I'll have to just go back and listen to it.
just look up the episodes that we talked about it and then re-listen to it and go, oh, yeah.
Right.
But we have not done the Doomward Curse, right?
No, we have not.
We've not done Doomward Curse.
So that is the second Charlie's story.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we had.
With
I knew we had done the first one, but I wasn't sure about the second one. I remembered the when you just now said it, the title popped back in my head. And part of that's because I've been looking at the scheduler. Well, what else on this one stood out? I like D.I. Mimsey's. I have for all the stories she's been in, so strong character.
Same. Yeah. She's a lot of fun.
All right, Sean.
And I think that was probably another in line with the mistaken identity, the fact that she is aware that she's met the doctor out of order and trying to keep it a secret.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to the end and the doctor is like, yeah, well, I kind of knew that was a thing and I'll return the favor for you. It was a cool little joke, but at the same time, it just made it, there was so much running around with that bit that didn't go anywhere.
Oh, that's true. But I thought it was kind of nice that the way he presented it too, where he kind of thanked her for doing that because he showed his appreciation for that, because not a lot of people would understand the importance of that having to be done sometimes. And she does, and I think he respects her more because of it.
Agreed. It also makes me kind of wish that, she was a full-blown companion at some point in time. Because I think she could handle it.
Well, from her,
she definitely could.
From her dossier on here, we aren't going to get much more of her, so.
Nope.
Hopefully, maybe later. Maybe more will come back. She'll come back later. All right, Sean, are you ready to do the schedule?
Well, there's some stuff coming up.
What do we got coming up on that schedule?
Well, next is a look at the big finish, Sontarans versus Routons. We will be doing story 1.1, The Battle for Giant's Causeway. And a couple of short trips from a day in the life, after midnight and before midnight, all as part of our companion archive, taking a little more of an in-depth look at Cariz, because it's old home week here with the Big Finish companions. We have some dream casting for Doctor and Companions in our next discussion panel. We will do some more Sontarans and Routons, and some Lethbridge Stewart fiction, going back into the world of the Laughing Gnome with Lucy Wilson and the Bleedo Cadets. And, how about an adversary archive while we're at it? We will take a look at the Axos, with the Feast of Axos and the Golden Ones. Big Finish, and a Doctor Who magazine comic series. And by Jonathan Morris, and now I'm excited.
Yeah, well, this story was Jonathan Morris too. Yeah, the one we just listened to.
He's always good.
And then
we've got to wait more than a month and a half to find out what happens next after the cliffhanger.
Yeah, as I say, the Feast of Axos will be the next Evelyn story, continuing on the Thomas Brewster story. So. All right, well, you can find all of this at travelingthevortex.com. And, of course, if you get any value out of this podcast, why not consider putting some value back into it? You can do that by becoming a patron of the podcast. Click on that Patreon link, and you can get information on supporting us there. You can also consider giving us a 5-star review wherever you subscribe to the podcast. It helps us bump up in the ratings and the recommendations. And, of course, make sure you join in the conversations on our listeners forum on Facebook. Follow us on our Facebook page. We're on TikTok, we're on X, formerly known as Twitter, and we're also on Instagram. Anything else we need to discuss before we close this one? If not, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.
Direction point! Direction point!
A Doctor Who podcast network.